Hello and welcome to Creative Wonder, the podcast where we talk shop, spill secrets, and occasionally pretend we have everything figured out. I'm your host, Tay Hislop, a photographer who helps marketers make their products, people, and services look so good they practically sell themselves. Each episode, I sit down with creative professionals to dig into their marketing strategies, how they use photography, and the real story behind how they got to where they are. The wins, the weird pivots, and the what am I even doing moments. And hey, if you're enjoying this show, it would mean a lot if you hit follow, leave a rating, or share it with someone who loves creative chaos as much as we do. All right, let's get into it. So glad to have you here with me today, Marc. I know you're a really great voiceover artist, and I want to learn a little bit more about what you do and some of your strategies and how you got to be where you are. So give me a little bit of background on how you got to be in the voiceover industry. I know you started out in radio and then kind of transitioned, but I know you have a much more complex story than what is found on the internet. So give it to me.
As we all do. Yeah, I decided from a very young age that radio was going to be the path that I wanted to follow, with Casey Kasem as my primary inspiration. Him hosting a weekly countdown and me thinking that working 4 hours a week was an adequate job. I watched my parents work 40 hours a week. That seemed like a total crap way to spend your life. So, right? So 4 hours a week seemed like a good deal. So I knew from a very young age that radio was going to be the path that I wanted to follow. And I think probably my greatest blessing that I had in my radio career was that I got started in the industry early enough that I got to enjoy the glory days of live 24/7 personality-driven radio. By the time I transitioned out, so my first radio job was in 1995. By the time I transitioned out in 2011, radio was mostly automated. It was mostly pre-recorded. It was, John Tesh and Delilah on every single station all the time. We've all suffered through that. It just wasn't fun anymore. It wasn't the same industry that I had started out in. The idea of having like a live guy on the air on overnights was unheard of by late 2000s. And so I'm grateful that I got to experience that part of radio. But when my last job came to an end, I thought a lot about where I was going to go next and what I was going to do next. And what I realized was that the industry that I had fallen in love with as a kid and the industry that I had got to start my career in was not the same industry anymore. And I didn't want to go back to radio. A lot of radio guys have side hustles, or at least at that time, they had side hustles because radio doesn't pay well, typically. Maybe if you're doing mornings in Toronto or something like that. I still remember when Aaron and Don from CHFI signed their $1 million contract and all the rest of us are like, making 30 grand a year or whatever. But I had been doing voiceover for years on the side, not intentionally, but as you work in that industry and as you expand your network and you get connected with other people in the broadcast space, you have people come and saying, hey, I need a voice for this thing. Can you do that? Hey, I need a voice for this spot or this whatever. And so I was doing that all along, not really knowing that there was an entire industry of that you could literally make a career out of that. So when my last radio job came to an end, and not wanting to go back to radio and also not wanting to move back in with my parents, I realized that I was making a little bit of money doing this voiceover thing. And if I could figure out how to do that a little bit more and make a little bit more, maybe there was an opportunity there. And so by default of having more time on my hands on account of being an unemployed bum, I had more time to give to doing voiceover, to finding opportunities and to auditioning and doing all of that stuff. And I inadvertently and fortunately turned it into a full-time career that I've been doing since 2012. And I remember when I walked out of my last radio station, it didn't end well as far as I was concerned. But anybody that's getting canned never thinks that it's ending well as far as they're concerned. And by the way, I didn't get canned because I did anything controversial. I got canned because the station was getting ready to be sold to somebody else and they needed to lay a bunch of people off to make the offer more attractive or whatever. And I just happened to be one of the low men on the totem pole at the time.
Yeah.
But
I
I
see.
remember I walked out of the building, not particularly enthused with my boss at the moment, and said, "You know what? From now on, the only idiot I answer to is me," which it sounded much more poetic in the moment, but
I love
after
it. It's going to be my
after the
motto from now
emotion,
on.
yeah, after the emotion of it settled, I was like, "You know what you said, right? Like, do you understand what you basically just said about yourself?" But somehow I have managed to make it so. So, here we are, 15 or whatever years later, and I am still the only idiot that I answer to. So that's probably one of the best parts about doing this voiceover thing is that I was my desire was freedom and flexibility, right? It
Mhm.
was freedom and flexibility. It
Me
was
too.
when I became a dad, it was, my kid's got a volleyball tournament next weekend. She's like, "Dad, are you coming to my volleyball tournament next weekend?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come to your volleyball tournament this next weekend because I'm the boss and I can take the morning off if I need to take the morning off or whatever." And
Right, right.
I love that aspect of the job and having that freedom and flexibility to be able to make those decisions, which is one of the beauties of being self-employed. I mean, I also work harder than anybody that I know, but I just might work hard at, 11 or 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever to make up for being able to take the day off and,
Mhm.
and, spend some time with extra time with my kids or whatever.
Yeah, it's nice having that flexibility. I
Yeah.
also really appreciate it as well. Um, so I want to know a little bit more about your style as far as voiceovers go. I know that you are considered a baritone and you're like a younger to mid-age adult style sound, but maybe you could tell me a little bit more about that.
I don't know. I auditioned for my first senior thing the other day and I was like, okay, that's making me,
Ooh.
I don't know how I feel about that. Somebody said it to me and they're like, you'd be perfect for this. I'm like, it says senior. What do you mean I'd be perfect for this? I'm like, okay, I'm aging, but come on. Um, my sound, I mean, obviously your voice changes over time, right? And I go back and listen. I recently actually just was refreshing some of the audio content that I had posted on a couple of websites, and some of the stuff was like 12 years old. I didn't realize it at the time, but I go back and listen to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, why did anybody hire me back then? But so my voice has transitioned over time, and my style and my tone has transitioned over time. But I think that that's also just a byproduct of the industry. I mean, when I first started doing voiceover, everything was the big booming voice announcer read. That's what everybody wanted. And now, for the last, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, every single audition that gets sent out in this industry, every single one says in giant, bolded, underlined letters, conversational, non announcer. And so the trends change in the industry. And that's part of it is just trying to keep up with, the read that was booking last year may not be the read that books next year. I think probably the biggest transition I saw in that was when we went through the pandemic. Everybody's stuck at home, everybody's scared, everybody's locked down, nobody knows what's going on. Nobody wants to hear a big booming voice announcer, right? They want to hear the warm and caring mom or the
Yeah,
dad or the
absolutely.
the empathetic voice or whatever. And so,
Sure.
for like a year and a half, that was the read. And if you could deliver that read, you made more money in your career than you'd ever made. But then as we transitioned out of lockdowns and life started to get back to normal, everything got more energized and uplifting and more exciting because we were, going back to normal or whatever. And so the industry and the read and the style, it really does get dictated a lot by just the environment that we're in at the time, societal, political, cultural, whatever.
Mhm. It's good to have a range, I suppose, of
Yep.
different styles you can do, but also I'm sure there's been an evolution over your career as to the style that you have and obviously the quality as well, getting better.
Yeah, everything back in the day was, fitting 45 seconds of copy into a 30-second commercial and, 30-second read. And it was fast and it was high energy and it was loud and it was in your face. And, I've got a ton of that stuff on some of my early reels. And now it's this, right? Nobody wants
Mhm.
that commercial that sounds like that. They want you to just talk like this, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You don't put on a voice anymore, I think is probably the best way to put it, right? And being a radio guy, that was probably one of the hardest transitions for me to make because when you went into the studio and you got in front of the microphone, you were there to put on a show. Like it was literally a radio
Mhm.
show. And you would go in and you would put on a voice and you would put on a personality and you would become this thing. And now in voiceover, like that's the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have this microphone in front of you that you don't even see because you're not talking to the microphone. You're talking to that one person that's standing in front of you, whoever it is that you picture. You're having a conversation with them and you're not selling them an iPhone. You're telling them about how the iPhone's going to make their life easier. And it's a totally different approach. And one that has been a challenge for this old radio guy to learn over the years. There's some, I mean, I haven't been on the air since 2011. I'm still trying to beat the announcer out of me every once in a while.
Do you remember that 90s TV commercial for Micro Machines with the guy that really talked fast? Like he was like the world Guinness record holder for the
Yes,
fastest talker.
because that is my 13-year-old daughter. And she doesn't get the reference, but literally, I will tell her. I've actually played the commercial for her before because when she gets really excited about something, that's exactly how she gets. She's like loud and fast and auctioneer, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're the freaking Micro Machine guy.
Yeah, yeah. That was awesome. I loved that when I was little. All right. What are some of the things that you do to make yourself stand out amongst your peers in the industry?
Content is a big part of it, and I wouldn't say that it's not like nobody else is doing it, but I think a lot of people don't do it with any great level of consistency because it's hard. And the irony of voice actors is, generally speaking, voice actors are creative by nature. And so because they are creative by nature, the business and marketing side of things is a struggle for them. It's like the opposite side of the brain type
Mhm.
deal. But yet content creation is such a creative thing, but they don't look at it as a creative thing. They look at it as a marketing task and then they don't
Right.
want to do it and they push themselves off of it. And so, I mean, that's definitely one of the things that I'm doing. And I remember I was sitting in a conference earlier this year, actually. One of the top agents for voiceover in the United States was leading this session, and it was in a genre that I dream about doing, which is documentary in show narration. I want to be Mike Rowe. That's like I want to be that guy. And
Nice.
one of the things that she said was, "There's never been an easier time to get noticed because whatever you want to do, just go create it." And so, if you want to be a commercial voice actor, like use the internet and social media to create commercials, post a new commercial every day, you doing the thing. And so I took that and started creating my own, I call them docu shorts, but YouTube content that I'm putting out, one or two of these things a week and creating the content that I want to be ultimately known for, seen for, and hired for. And I mean, that's something that you couldn't do that when I started in this industry. That wasn't an opportunity that was there. And so, create the content that you want to narrate. And I guess the idea is just that if you create enough of it and if you create it consistently, ultimately somebody's going to see that and somebody's going to reach out. Now, in my case, so far, the only person that's reached out was somebody who wanted me to do a whole bunch of stuff for the Church of Scientology, and I wasn't really down with that. So I respectfully declined. But somewhere out there, there's somebody else who's going to see it, and they're going to be like, "Hey, you would be perfect for this documentary we're doing on whatever." And I'm going to
Right,
say
right, right.
yes, and we're going to make it happen.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. When a script comes in,
Mhm.
what are your first steps in approaching it? I mean, do you like obviously analyze it and maybe practice it, but like what's your workflow look like there?
I tend to just go in the booth and record. And I know that's probably not always the best approach, but the risk on the other side is if you look at it too much ahead of time and you start to overthink it, the more comfortable that you are with the script in a lot of instances, the more that it sounds like you're reading it.
Oh, really?
And so for me, it's easier to just go in and record a couple of takes, just kind of cold. I can go back and edit. I mean, that's one of the other beauties of the industry now, right? Back in the day, you recorded on tape and you had to edit tape, and that was a freaking nightmare. Now you record digitally and you just cut it out and paste something new in or whatever. So I will often just go into the booth and do a couple of reads cold. And then when I come back and I'm sitting in the studio and I'm doing the editing and I'm listening to it, I'm like, man, I could have done that better, or I want to say this like that, or whatever. And so I pop into the booth and I record the line and I come back and edit and away we go. It's not that I'm going 100% cold. I look it over, try to get a sense of, what's the story being told here? What can
Hmm.
I get from the brief that's being provided with this or whatever? I just don't want to get. It's really easy for me to get too far into my head, right? And start to overanalyze every aspect of it to the point where I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to say every word, and then that's just it doesn't sound natural at that point. So I would rather just
Right.
go in and just record and see what comes out.
I like that. That's a good approach. Is there any place like unexpected avenue that you've had work come from?
I have had the good fortune of having work come from a lot of different places, and I think part of that is just longevity. When you've been around in the industry for a while and been in a lot of different places, I have people that reach out to me through my website. I have people that reach out to me through different social media platforms. Obviously, I have people that I'm reaching out to and establishing relationships with directly, but people from my past, people that are in my network that, you know, they know someone, right? It's that you've had this conversation. Somebody has come to you because somebody needed a photographer, and
Oh,
what and
100%.
and whoever it was, you have no connection to the person that needed the photographer, but you had a connection to the person who was connected to the person who needed the photographer. And they're like, "Oh, you should go talk to her. She can do it."
Hmm.
And right, and I've had stuff like that come up before with people that was totally unexpected, but they know somebody who knows somebody, and your name gets passed around or whatever. And I think a lot of that, like I said, I think it has to do with longevity. I think it has to do with presence. Just when you're always there in front of people through social media or whatever, your name is the name that's top of mind. But it's also just a byproduct of being a good person and doing good work, I think, too. And people will refer people that they know, like, and trust. And so I try to use my platform as a way to give people the opportunity to get to know, like, and trust me.
Hmm. That's an important part of marketing.
Yeah.
I know trust, authenticity, professionalism, approachability. I know when I'm doing photography and for business portraits, those are the things that I'm thinking of. I want this person to look competent. I want them to be approachable.
Yep.
I want people to know that they can trust them. And I don't think people realize that when, you know, they set up a website or they're just starting to do marketing for their business. It's like their company looks so faceless.
Yeah.
So, you know, and without seeing an actual person, it's hard to really trust that company. So, yeah. What is your secret sauce to your marketing?
Showing up every day. I mean, that really is it. I think it's consistency over time. I think it's really easy to do marketing for a minute. I'm going to send a whole bunch of emails today, and then you send a bunch of emails, and then you don't do anything for a month. Or I'm gonna be really good on social media, and you post for a week, and then you disappear for a while. I mean, I've been showing up every day since the early 2000s. I don't want to make myself sound too old here, but I mean, I really have. I've been showing up every day, and I think I coach voice actors on marketing, and where very seldom do I have a conversation with a voice actor who doesn't know what to do. They all know what to do, and most of them know how to do it. It's the discipline to show up and do it consistently, because I could send 100 emails, and I say that if I get a 10 to 15% response rate off of those cold emails, I'm feeling pretty good. And
Hmm.
so that means that if I email 100 production companies this week, um, maybe 10 or 15 of them ultimately respond. And so if you're not prepared for that, it feels like you just wasted a lot of time sending 100 emails. But the reality is that if you get those 10 or 15 responses and you get a few bookings out of it, then it was absolutely worth it. But that doesn't give us the gratification that we're looking for when 85 of those emails never even got responded to. And so I understand that side of it, and I just show up and do the thing anyway, because ultimately I know something's going to stick.
Hmm. I think that consistency is key. But how do you stay consistent without it feeling like a never-ending marketing campaign?
You got to have a really strong why. And my why has transitioned at different points. When we were going into the pandemic, so the end of January of 2020, we blew up. our kitchen, like tore out walls, everything. When the world went into lockdown, the kitchen, living room, dining room of our house was floor joists and wall studs.
Yikes.
There was no, like, literally, there was no floors. There was no running water. There was nothing when we went into lockdown. Obviously, we didn't know that
No.
that was going to happen.
I bought a laptop just before the
Yeah,
lockdown, and it was very expensive, and then we couldn't work, and I was like, "Ah."
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I spent 6 months cooking every single meal on a barbecue and washing dishes in a bathtub. Um, but as we were going through that, my why was not about sending emails and not about getting auditions. My why was about getting my kitchen put back together. And every day when I came into my studio, I had a board that was hanging right beside my desk, and it had pictures of the cabinet designs and the 3D renderings. It had pictures of the appliances that we were ultimately were gonna get. Like, everything was right there. And I looked at that every single day. And it was a reminder of, this is what I'm working for. This
Mhm.
is the thing that I'm going to work for right now. It's not about sending another marketing email. It's about paying for this kitchen. And I had made a commitment to my wife that we were going to do it, and we were going to pay cash, and we weren't going to compromise. Now, again, this was all prior to the whole entire world shutting down, and that obviously complicated things greatly. But if I needed that strong why. Today, it's different. When I first got married, my wife had 2 kids, and at that time I was a firefighter. And when the girls would go to school, and teachers like, "Oh, what's your dad do?" Or kids were like, "What's your dad do?" I was a firefighter, and that's a cool thing to be able to tell. You tell your friends or your teacher or whatever that you're a firefighter. And now I have 2 kids, and one just started kindergarten this year, and I'm not a firefighter anymore. So when she goes to school and the teacher's like, "What's your dad do?" She's like, "Well, he's a voice actor," and then nobody knows what that means, right? And
Mhm.
so and then the teacher's like, "Oh, well, what would I have heard him on?" And it's like, unless you listen to some obscure employee training program for some random company out of the United States, telling you what to do to get your 2026 benefits package, right? And I don't want that. I want my kid to be able to go to school and say, "My dad is the voice of that show on Discovery Channel."
Yeah,
And
that's
so
awesome.
that's my why. So every day I come into the studio, and it's not about, I got to get another post done for LinkedIn, or I got to get out another episode of my podcast, or I got to contact another 5 people today. It's, I got to get this Discovery show. How the heck do I get this Discovery show? What do I need to do today? What steps can I take today? It's going to get me one step closer to that Discovery show, so that my kid can go to school and say, "My dad's the voice on that show." And so I'm thinking about that. I'm not thinking about the marketing.
That's awesome. I like that. It's a good way of thinking of, you know, the whole strategy of why you're doing it and
Yep.
keeping you motivated, I guess. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah.
I know that you and I have done a little bit of photography together for your marketing, for your
Yeah. I
branding.
apologize for that experience.
No, don't. I thought it was very enjoyable. It was good.
You're such a
I
liar.
No, 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 no. Because here's the thing. A lot of people just come in and they're like, have no clue what they want. And, it's up to me to take some great shots of them. And they get what they want, but it's pretty much like the same every time if it's a business portrait.
Right.
And you came in and it was different because you were like, I think I have some ideas I want to bring to the table here. And
But I was also like, by the way, there are 50,000 other things that I would rather be doing right now than getting my picture taken, because there is nothing that I hate more in the whole entire free world than getting my
oh,
picture taken.
same here. That's why I'm on the other side of the camera. But I liked it because it was different and it was more fun and creative. And, I tried out some different lighting techniques and I did things differently than I normally would. And it was a lot of fun. So tell me what spurred you to get your photos done and how you use them and how's that part of your marketing?
Voiceover is a really interesting genre for headshots, and it is actually one of the most heavily debated aspects of our marketing strategies, because of the fact that it's not uncommon for the voice to not match the face. And
Okay.
so if you're, I have worked with 65-year-olds who literally sound 20.
Really?
Yes. One of the most bizarre sessions, and I don't mean bizarre in a bad way. I mean, like, one of the sessions that just to this day, it's still, I can hear the guy's voice. 18-year-old kid who had the deepest, crispest, cleanest, most beautiful voice that I've ever heard in my life. But he looked like he was 12.
That's
And so you
awesome.
put that guy's picture on a website and somebody's going to see this 12-year-old looking kid, and are they even going to give him a chance?
Hmm.
Because his voice does not match his look at all. And so there's a lot of debate in the industry about whether or not we need headshots or should use headshots or whatever. I default back to, we want to know who we're working with. We want to have some kind of a connection, right? We want to see a smiling face. What's the worst thing in the world is when you call a large corporation and you get like the on hold messaging system that is probably not even a human anymore. And it's just the most infuriating experience in the whole entire world. And all you want is to press one to speak to a human, or you're cursing out the AI to get to a human or whatever. Like, we crave that connection. And I think especially now more than ever. And so I knew that as much as I hated getting my picture taken, I knew that it was going to make a difference in how people connected with me
Hmm.
ultimately.
Right. Yeah.
Now, are my voice and face completely disconnected? Not to the degree that some other people are. So maybe I can get away with it a little bit more. Um, but yeah, we're an interesting industry for that, because it's being accepted more and more. I'm seeing more and more voice actors that are doing like full blown photo shoots and creating, like full blown branding photos and all of that sort of stuff, versus, before, where they just had, like an image of a microphone or something like that. And it's like, they want you to connect with this image of a microphone. But I think I think it gives that human connection. I mean, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, the whole know, like, and trust thing, right? It's so
Hmm.
much easier to begin that process of getting to know, like, and trust someone if you can see their smiling face.
Absolutely.
Or at least that's what I tell myself.
All right. What part of your workflow makes you feel the most professional, and what part still makes you feel like you're winging it?
Oh, good grief. I'm winging it frequently.
I'm winging it with everything.
I am winging it more than I care to admit. Um, I am definitely winging it a lot. I feel pretty good. When I get in the booth, I feel like I know what I'm doing there. I have my workflows there, but I still feel like I'm winging every audition. Once it's recorded, I can sit down and I can edit and deliver and, get it done. But I still feel like I'm winging it often when I walk into the booth. The whole process of creating social media strategies and posting consistently on social media. I mean, I can do that with my eyes closed and one hand tied behind my back, but I'm totally winging the actual content creation side of things, like the ideation and coming up with what I'm actually going to talk about or what I'm going to share. Um, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing either, because I think the other side of that is the risk of being too comfortable and getting too set in your ways, and not being willing to try something new or try to do something in a different way. um, Complacency, I mean,
Hmm.
that's what kills so many of us, is we settle into a groove and just stay there. And so I don't think necessarily that winging it is a bad thing. I can't tell you how many times I was at a conference in the States a few weeks ago, and I was still putting together my session, because I was teaching a 1-hour class. I was still putting together my session the morning of, and then even standing there on stage, I started going off script, because I'm just living in the moment and reading the
Hmm.
room and that whole thing. And so, yeah, there's a lot of winging it going on.
Yeah, I find there's a lot of winging it on my photo shoots because even though I have all this experience and the skills, every shoot is a little different. And sometimes you just got to roll with it
It's
and
personalities, right?
figure it out as you go. And that's just part of the process. Um, are there any like tools or gear or software that you use that really has positively affected your workflow? And are
Last
there any you
year,
regret?
last year on Black Friday, I bought a 49-inch ultra widescreen monitor, and that was one of the greatest things that I ever did. Um,
Nice.
the ability, I don't, anybody who is like 1,000 tab person, right? You open up your Google Chrome or your Safari or whatever, and you got all these tabs and stuff like that. But the ability for me to have on my screen, like when I'm editing my podcast, I can have a transcript open. I can have my audio editing software open. I can have my notes from the show open and everything all right there, one view right in front of me. It was one of the most obnoxious purchases. Like spending the money was not easy. But once I put that into my workflow, I was like, oh my gosh, why did you wait so many years to actually do this? And to the point where I debate every once in a while adding a second one stacked up on
Ooh,
top so
nice.
that I can have even more real estate to have everything spread out so that I'm not clicking back and forth even on an ultra wide screen monitor. But that was one of my splurges that, I mean, if you work on a computer all day, you go from working on a 13-inch MacBook Air, and then all of a sudden you got a 49-inch monitor in front of you. I mean, geez, I'll go out for lunch every once in a while. I'll go to, Boston Pizza or something just to get out of the basement and go for go for lunch, sit in the sun, whatever.
Right.
I take my iPad now. So even when I'm sitting in Boston Pizza, I got my MacBook open and I use my iPad as an extra screen because I'm like, I can't function like this. I have a 49-inch screen at home.
You're spoiled, is what you
I
are.
am now. I am
Spoiled.
absolutely spoiled now. But I'll tell you what, that was one of the most amazing things that I did for my efficiency because I feel like I spent half my day just trying to find the window for the thing that I was looking for, going back and forth. I mean, to be able to do your books at the end of the month and have your accounting software open in one window and your bank open in another window and your invoices open in another window and everything's right there and there's no clicking back and forth. Like I can do it in half the time now.
That's nice.
So much better, so much worth it. Yeah.
I know. Sitting here at this desk right now, I have 4 screens in front of me. I mean, I'm not using all of them, but the one up top is more used for editing, video and stuff. And if they want to screen it with other clients, then it's available. But sometimes we just put a fireplace on there just for making it cozy inside.
Been there and done that.
um, so I feel like this last answer that you gave kind of like leads into my next question about how you stay organized with multiple clients. I figure, you know, you're just having more screen real estate and then you can have like multiple things open but no, go into a little more detail about how do you juggle different clients at the same time?
One of the smartest investments that I ever made in my business was a CRM, which is customer relationship management software, which as a, solopreneur, this is stuff that you don't think about. Nobody's teaching about this stuff, or at least at the time, nobody was teaching about it. I had a system that was, searching through my inbox. I had notes in my Apple Notes and notes in Evernote, and I had spreadsheets, and like I had information spread across 14 different places, and my CRM gave me the ability to bring it all into one. And
Hmm.
and so I can click on any one of my clients and get a complete overview. What was our last conversation? When was our last conversation? What did we talk about? What are the notes that I've made about them? What was the last project that I worked on? I can have, what projects am I working on right now and where are we at on those projects? And I can see everything in an overview inside of that software. Um, that was probably one of the biggest game changers for me. And that is something that I started teaching other voice actors about. And I became one of the most popular people at the headquarters of the CRM that I use because I think I've probably sent them 1,000 customers.
You should be
Uh,
getting a discount for all the
yeah.
people that you're
So
sending their way.
but it really was software that made a huge difference for me because the older that you get, the harder that it becomes to remember all this stuff.
So true, so true. Just out of curiosity, which program are you using for your CRM?
I am using a program called Nimble, and the website is
Nimble.
just
Hmm,
nimble.com. And it's
haven't
just
heard
a
of that
really
one.
nice online CRM system, tons of functionality, um, really affordable compared to a lot of them. It doesn't have the overkill of like a HubSpot, for example, which is incredible, but it's so much more than what most solopreneur small businesses need. And so I found Nimble, I was probably around 2016, actually, I think, when I first started using it. And I've been using it ever since, and I love it.
Nice, nice. Um, Last question to wrap it all up. If you could give your younger self some advice to give them an advantage over how you were when you started out, what would you tell them?
Man, I didn't start saving money and compounding until I was in my mid 30s, and I probably have cost myself millions of dollars in retirement. And that's not an exaggeration. Like when I actually learned about the power of compounding and started investing money, I'm like, oh, all those times when I was a kid and my mom was trying to get me to put money on my savings account, and I was like, this is stupid. I want to buy whatever. I was like 18 or 19 years old, and I had 4 cars, all 4 of them insured and licensed.
Oh my
And I'm like,
gosh.
you're so stupid. You're so stupid.
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah,
is
yeah.
literally
Oh my
millions
gosh.
of dollars in
What a
retirement that
waste.
cost you. Yeah. So that would definitely be one of the things that I would go back and tell my younger self is start compounding. I have a daughter who is 17, and her 18th birthday is in February, and we've already made an appointment with the bank for her 18th. Like on her 18th birthday, my gift to her will be taking her to the bank and getting her TFSA set up so that she can start saving when she's 18
Nice.
versus, her idiot father who didn't start until he was in his mid 30s. So that would be one thing. And the other thing that I would tell myself is to be brave and to just go for it sooner.
I like that.
It took getting laid off from radio and finding myself in unemployment to give me the kick in the butt that I needed to actually do what I wanted to and probably should have been doing all along, because I was not brave, even as a firefighter, brave in other ways, but not in the ways that I probably needed to be for business. And so I would tell myself to start sooner, to be brave and start sooner, that you will figure it out.
That's fantastic. I love that. Well, that's all I have to ask you for today. And if I have any more questions, I'll have you back on this, whatever this is.
Well,
But thank
thank
you
you.
so much, Marc Scott,
Yeah.
voiceover artist. So glad we could talk together today. And I hope some people find this interesting and informative.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see you again in person.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Creative Wonder with Tay. Thanks for giving it a listen. This podcast is produced by Tay Photography. Yes, that's me, still behind the camera and the mic. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow the show, leave a comment or rating, and share it with someone who'd love it too. It really makes a difference. And if you need commercial photography that actually grabs attention instead of getting lost in the scroll, get in touch. My goal is to take the chaos out of commercial shoots and turn them into a smooth, easy process. You can find me online at tay.ca or on Instagram at tay_creatives. Keep making things that spark wonder.